Oh man, guys, welcome back. Episode 4 was crazy. Loved it. I'm going to change these videos up a little bit for the quick reactions, but let's get into it. Before I start, no spoilers for the book series. I'm going to start making these without any spoilers for the first one, and then on my longer breakdowns, that's when I'll get into all my spoilers. So the only spoiler warning that I have for this is for the first 4 episodes of the Amazon series. If you haven't watched those, go watch those first, then come back and like, subscribe, click the bell icon, and then finish watching this video. But for right now, let's get into this. Alright, so let's start from the first scene. Really is another cold opening, and this is, one of those flashback history things. They said they had somebody naming themselves the Dragon Reborn at the end of the last episode, so we, pretty good idea they were going to show, okay, who is this guy? Turns out his name is Logain Ablar, and he thinks he's the Dragon Reborn. So his introduction was great. Yeah, it shows that he has the one power, but then, he's sitting there, and the guy's, chasing down who is the king, and he's like, you will never wear the silver crown. He's like, why do I want a crown? I'm the Dragon Reborn. And the guy tries to stab him. He doesn't let him. And he holds him with the one power, and it looks like he's going to kill him, only he doesn't. He says, there's a place by my side for anybody, everyone, even my enemies, and hands him back the dagger. That is just wonderful. That is a great way to show that. And he had little people whispering to him at made out of the power. Maybe it was the madness, maybe it wasn't. It was the madness, let's be honest. And, he went forth from there, and apparently the king joined him, as we find out later on in the episode. But that was a great way to start the episode. All right, some other quick highlights. Yeah, them getting there, Moiraine getting healed, and getting to see her and some of the other sisters, them talking about how powerful Logain is, and she's I can't remember the name of the Aes Sedai, but the one that healed Moiraine is she's like, I'm not tired because of the healing. I'm tired because it's tiring keeping this guy shielded from the one power, and that's what's taken the toll on her. She said it takes at least 2 of them to hold her down. So it's not like one sister, Aes Sedai can just keep them shielded. They need 2, and showing with some of the scenes, they're taking shifts, and it's put a strain on them. It's apparently not easy. You get a little bit of character development with Moiraine while she's there, but more importantly, off to the side, you get some good character development for Lan and Nynaeve, which we'll get to in just a few minutes. But first, let's talk about the Tuatha'an. They did a wonderful job of explaining the Way of the Leaf. I thought that scene with Perrin and Aram's grandmother, and her explaining to him how she wanted vengeance, and the best vengeance she could have is against death, and violence is life and peace. Beautiful. So that was just beautifully done. Loved that. I loved it seemed like the Tinkers were a little brighter in this one. I don't know if it was just because they were just introducing them in the last episode, but definitely the wagons, the Vardos, very colorful. As they're walking by in a stream, you see a lot more color on people. I know that was something that some of the fans of the series were complaining about when they first saw them, that they were not dressed outlandishly enough. So to see that, kind of, even if it was from afar, was a little bit better. So that was good. That whole conversation where she says, have you ever done violence? You've picked up a sword, a bow, an axe, and Perrin's face just straight white, just kind of, oh crap. Marcus Rutherford's doing a wonderful job with just his acting, his facial expressions, and showing that pain that comes up and hits him out of nowhere. So good. Again, Egwene, you don't see as much with her. You see that Aram is kind of, he's clearly dancing with her, kind of flirting with her, and, making those big calf eyes at her. But, he's like, all right, who is it? Who are you waiting on? Who has your heart? And that was pretty cool. There's a good little nod there. We won't dwell because I don't want to get into spoilers. But again, a lot of good character development, a lot of story development, talking about the Way of the Leaf, and really just wonderful development of the Tuatha'an as well as Perrin overall in that scene. Then you go to the flip side of this, and you have Rand, Mat, and Tom Merrilin all traveling east, trying to escape their fate, coming across a farmhouse. So as they're getting ready to go up there, Rand is actually a little suspicious. He's talking to Mat about things. He's like, hey, why is this guy leading us east? all this other stuff. It's very interesting how that's happening. But you're noticing some little things with Mat specifically. His horse keeps not wanting to go forward. Actually, in some of the scenes, he starts getting a little weird. He starts throwing up, and there's this blackness that's going all over him. Tom Morellan's noticing it. He's noticing the sick. He's starting to get a little sick and stuff, and he's starting to show something that, as he explains, he's seen before, alluding to the fact that maybe he can channel, because these are things that Tom Morellan saw with his nephew Owen. So he's explaining that to Rand as a means of saying, hey, this might be what's happening to your friend. We need to keep an eye on him, and definitely need to keep him away from the Red Sisters because of what they had done to Owen. So long story short, they're allowed to stay in the barn as long as they muck it out. Later that night, a little girl comes out to actually Mat right after his son throwing up, which is just creepy, and offers him bread because her mother had sent it out for him. There's this wonderful little exchange that reminds you how much Mat misses and how much he wants to take care of his sisters. And he even, she offers to give Mat her Brigitte doll. And he doesn't want to take it, but he does take it eventually because she's being nice. Later on that night, after they're sleeping, Rand has a nightmare, and I can't see everything in the nightmare. I'm going to go into that in depth in my breakdown. So if you don't mind spoilers, or if you've already read the books and everything, we'll cover it then, because that is a scene that I'm going to have to pause and really look at. Unfortunately, I do work, so I didn't get to watch this until late. Like, I literally just finished that episode maybe 15 minutes before I started recording, let it digest a little bit. So yeah, nonetheless, Rand has a nightmare. When he wakes up, Tom Morellan's like, I got you, boy, I got you, it's fine. But where's Mat? So they're worried. They immediately run into the farmhouse, and there's bodies everywhere, and Mat's just standing in the middle. So it makes you think that, oh, maybe Mat did this, until you see him with that dagger pointing up, and he says, I see you. And then a fade comes out, and then, attacks those three. Tom immediately tells them to get out, and actually does some really good knife work, trying to hold off that fade, and then Mat and Rand ride off into the night. Don't know what happened to Tom yet. My guess, well, I won't get into my guess because I know too much. That being said, let's go back to the other storyline when it comes to the Aes Sedai and Nynaeve. So, like I said, this is where I think the bulk of the development was. You get to see that Alanna Sedai and Moiraine have known each other for quite some time. Liandrin as well. Liandrin actually goes up and starts talking to Nynaeve for a little bit, kind of maybe potentially recruiting her to the Red Aja. Hopefully, she's like, hey, there's always a place for the Red, in the Red Tent if you want to come down. But Nynaeve sees right through. She's like, no, that woman's a viper. So she goes and eats with the warders because Lan invited her to sit by their fire, and she kind of warms up to Lan really during this whole episode, and vice versa. I think there's a touching scene where she says something in the Old Tongue. I can't say it right now because I don't know that much Old Tongue. But she basically tells Lan that that's the last thing her parents said to her before hiding her in a cellar during an attack on their village. And he asked if she wanted to know what it meant. And, he explains it's basically the last thing that the King of Netheryn said to his wife before he left. It's something like, we go to the ground so our children can always hold us and we'll never be alone. Something to that nature. I'm paraphrasing slightly. And you can just tell me, if you imagine that you've been carrying that around for you for, let's say that she's 26, we'll say 20 years, and that's the last thing you remember of your parents, and you never knew what it meant. Now he's like, this is what it means, and it's something that's super touching. I mean, that's the kind of thing that melts a heart, right? But you can definitely see them kind of becoming closer. You also get to see Moiraine and just how fixated she is on this quest to find the Dragon Reborn. I mean, in the scene in her tent with Lan, she's distraught over the fact that they lost the Two Rivers folk, Mat, Perrin, Egwene, and Rand, because she thinks one of them is Dragon Reborn. She's just absolutely distraught, and Lan's like, no, it's my failure, and she's like, your failure is my failure. So it showed that their closeness, that she didn't hold it against him, but they look as they work as a team, and she kind of showed that. But she's also shown that she's willing to work with her fellow Aes Sedai, because she's immediately, once she's healed, is taking up shifts to help shield Logain. Unfortunately, it's kind of all for naught, because Logain's army eventually attacks, and when the couple of Aes Sedai are kind of trying to deal with that, worrying about that as well as shielding him, he busts out. Then Moiraine comes up, and she says something very telling. She says that there's not much time for her and Logain to talk before the other sisters get there. So why should she believe that he's the Dragon Reborn? He says that he hears the voices of all the Dragon Reborns behind him. And you can tell if you watch closely that she's biding time. She's just trying to buy time for either more people to show up or for her sisters to wake up. And actually, you can tell that she notices that one of them starts waking up. She keeps talking to him. And it isn't until the other sisters are awake that she says, "Your power is but a fraction, but nothing but a candle to the blazing sun that the Dragon Reborn will be." Which, obviously makes him mad, but they immediately shield him. Unfortunately, before they completely shield him, he does throw out, basically spikes Mane out of the power and kills the Green Sister that's with him, whose name I cannot remember because I don't think she was in the books, but that does not bother me at all. Unfortunately, her warder felt her die, and when he arrives, he immediately grabs both his axes and tries to behead Logain. What this does is, while the Aes Sedai are shielding him, those axes go through, and it's not until they go through that Logain can touch them with the power. And since he could touch them with power, he could make them explode, which leveled just about everybody. I mean, Moiraine got the half of the axe in her stomach. Liandrin was down. Alanna Sedai was down. Lan got his throat slit. It wasn't until Nynaeve came in and was trying to keep him from dying that she just exploded with the one power, like a burning sun, and healed everybody. At which Logain was absolutely flabbergasted, and he realized at that point, oh crap, I'm not the Dragon Reborn. And of course it gave Liandrin a chance to say, hey sisters, link with me, and they all were sending their one power through her, and she immediately jilted him on the spot. And you end seeing Nynaeve looking up at the camera. So here's the big thing with this, just in closing, before I say this was a great episode, because it really was. What this episode did was it gave, we've already seen, okay, we know the Gwen could channel, so that was, them throwing her into the Dragon Reborn hunt. We don't know what this thing with Perrin and the Wolves are. Throwing that in there. Now you have Matt acting like, Tom Morellan's nephew Owen, who could channel, showing signs like that. And you have Nynaeve, who clearly can channel, and extremely powerfully, because that shocked everyone. You could tell that even Liandrin was like, what in the world just happened? How did that come out of this one person? So there you go. It is pulling up. And actually, now that I think about it, there's even a point when someone said, they said the five of us, who's the fifth? Probably talking about, I think it was Matt that said it, talking about Dana, the Dark Friend who tried to kill him, said it's one of the five of you. So there you go. They are definitely setting up to where any five of them could be the Dragon Reborn. We haven't seen anything out of Rand yet, so let's see. Other than that, you guys have a wonderful day. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, I did do that cover of Weep for Manetheren, so please go check that out. I enjoy doing these videos, but I am clearly a musician first, and I did do a fair amount of lute playing, surprisingly enough. Nonetheless, don't forget to click that like, subscribe, and bell icon so you're notified whenever I come out with new content or more covers. And I'll see you in the breakdown video.